Why is it so challenging to get a book out there? Nerd Nation. Today we're going to talk about the book market, why it's so broken. So this is a series of podcasts I'm putting together to be able to help aspiring authors or new authors or rather experienced authors in a book market that seems super saturated. This is a 6-part series, and I want to talk about this deep dive in the new and emerging market that we find ourselves in. So just starting out, 81% of Americans want to write a book. So why do so few ever make money at it? Okay, so who am I? I'm Sterling Nixon, author of the Nickel Brickleby series, the Acadia series, Gladiators of the Namatchia, and 7 Days. I've been writing since, 1999, but my first book was published in 2009. Okay, so the writing market is very unique, whereas a normal market typically works like this. So profits drop and competitors exit. So you'll have something where there's market entry when there's a lot of profit, but then as that profit slows down or drops down, as more competitors enter the market, people start exiting as it becomes less competitive. Supply shrinks, balance is restored. Unprofitable products get discontinued, and business closes when the economics fail. So if a company is not making profit, they're going to exit that strategy or exit that product. So how the book market works is vastly different. Profits drop, authors just write another book. Most authors don't make any money, but they continue to write books. So they never exit the market. Supply never shrinks, it only grows. Once you publish a book, it's out there pretty much forever. Underperforming books don't get pulled, and struggling authors don't exit the market. Instead, a lot of them end up doubling down, pushing out more books, creating a more saturation into the market. So, authors are not traditional businesses. They don't fold when the product underperforms, they reinvest. Unlike a restaurant that closes, a struggling author often writes another book. So, if authors don't behave like businesses, what are they? Okay, so this very complicated chart is kind of what I'm talking about. I'll just walk through it pretty quickly. So this is a normal supply and demand intersection, right? This is normally where profit or price would come into play, where when you have a new industry come about and you have a lot of high demand for it, you have more companies start entering, right? So let's say this red line is the companies entering into an industry because there's profit behind it. Well, the more companies that enter start pushing that profit margin down, it starts getting very competitive, price start going down. And eventually you run into an equilibrium, basically where there's just the right amount of businesses that set the price, and eventually their profit actually gets pushed down to zero. Now, the exception is if it's a niche market or if you have branding. Let's say Nike. Nike can always charge a premium price and always make a profit because of their branding. But unlike those normal markets, when a company stops making money, those companies exit the market. Book writing is not the case. People will continue to write books. They will continue to put books out there, and the price where the supply and demand intersect is actually much lower than where you are making any profit. So sometimes authors will continue to write books even if they've spent $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 on their book because it is a different kind of product. So this just makes it so that no books ever really leave the market. Most authors double down. And so it's already a super saturated market becomes even more saturated. Okay, the goal, or at least one point in their lives, 81% of Americans want to write a book. So it's a huge aspiration. Publishing a book isn't a business decision, it's a self-definition, right? So you're much more willing to stick it out or take a loss because it isn't necessarily your stream of revenue for your support to support yourself. Usually it's a peripheral activity or it's a hobby, right? So publishing equals esteem plus legacy. For many authors, the act of publishing is the reward. Sales are secondary. A lot of people don't make any money off their books, but they're still happy to just be a published author. The book is tied to identity, legacy, self-worth in a way that no other product is. You also have infinite reader choice, right? So a reader has 3 million book choices that they can choose from. Now, the vast majority or a good chunk of those aren't going to be books that are going to be well read in the least degree, but that represents a still massive amount of available reader choice. Standing out is no longer an advantage, it's a survival requirement. You have to stand out, otherwise, your book won't see the light of day. Discoverability is the new scarcity. The product itself has become commoditized. What's actually scarce and valuable is visibility. And visibility is now purchased, not earned by craft alone. So you could write and have the best book out there and published. If you don't have a comprehensive market strategy, if you don't have a decent enough platform, or if you don't have a way to comprehensively get the book out there, it is going to sit on shelves, but it could be the best book in the world. It doesn't matter anymore. When I first started writing, my second book that came out, 7 Days, that was in 2014, and that was a very different setup. You could put a good book out there and you sell thousands of copies. And I did sell thousands of copies with 7 Days with very limited marketing. That is not the case nowadays. You have to do a comprehensive, detailed, and smart marketing strategy. On the plus side, books have become exceptional. Now, this is my personal opinion. The stuff that I consume as a consumer or reader is fantastic. Ironically, reviews have become increasingly more harsh, more critical, and I think the quality of writing has responded to that because it's become so competitive for people's time. So books have become fantastic. Pretty much every book that I read now is got a stellar performance on Audible, or it's a great book. Even the ones that don't even have that many reviews. That is just requirement number one to succeed in this industry. You got to have a phenomenal book. Okay, I'm going to make some people angry, but there are a lot of books out there that if they were published today, they used to be the end all be all back when they were published. But there's a lot of books out there that if they were published today would not make it. For example, Dune. I know there's some Dune fans, getting angry right now, but the films are culturally more present than the book right now. And that says a lot about the book. I read the books. There's just some issues with the book that just would not stand up to the criticism and review of today. The Sword of Shannara, I read those books when I was young and enjoyed them, loved them. That book was the first fantasy novel to hit the New York Times bestseller list. And today, pretty much nobody talks about it. Nobody at least under 40. So almost all these books share the same problems by today's standards. Slow openings, underdeveloped characters relative to ideas, and dense world building front-loaded before the reader has any emotional reason to care, right? Those books just would not stand up to the criticism and the competitiveness that exists today. What worked 5 years ago has increasingly a shorter shelf life. Early 2010s, blog tours, that's where it was at. Those are pretty much completely gone. Mid 2010s, BookTube, it's fading, still there, but it is on a lifeline. Bookstagram is very crowded, very super saturated. 2020 is BookTok is absolutely dominant. So what's next, right? So the market is constantly shifting. And that is the trick about publishing and having books out today is shifting where that market goes. It is increasingly exceptionally difficult, right? Every platform equals a new skill set. So BookTube requires video editing and long format content. Bookstagram requires visual design. BookTok requires 15-second hooks. Each demands a completely different creative muscle, right? So as a writer, it used to be you got really good at your craft, you honed your craft, but that isn't the case anymore. Paid ads, they're more complex, more expensive, Facebook, if you ever put ads on Facebook, it is like, I really feel like you need a PhD to understand what's going on there. What $50 achieved in 2019 requires $200 today. Even the advertisement has become super saturated. I advertise on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and on Amazon. I used to advertise on Amazon for, gosh, man, it was like 15 to 20 cents a click. And some of my ads now are up to $3 to $4 to $5 per click. I mean, that is a huge distance between costs, right? In just a short amount of time. Algorithm plays have a half-life. Amazon ranking strategies, Amazon ranking strategies, keyword stuffing, review timings, they all worked until they didn't. The platform adjusts, the rules change, and the playbook gets thrown out time and time again. So the market, like I said before, is constantly changing. Algorithms are changing, inputs are changing, outputs are changing. Or a book is much more likely to go viral if it is from an influencer than necessarily the quality of the book, right? So likewise, you could have the best book but have no platform, and that is the struggle. Is basically your marketing budget now competes against traditional publishers, hybrid publishers, and full-time indie marketers. The game has permanently shifted. It has become so hyper competitive. The job title is author. The actual job description is something else entirely. Okay, so this is what you think you signed up for: writing a book, a little editing here and there, finding an agent publisher, doing a read or two, maybe a book signing. But this is the job you actually have, right? Writing the book, if time permits, right? You think that would be the most important thing as an author? Well, you got to maintain your TikTok, your Instagram, your YouTube, your newsletter, build and manage a community, brand, run ads, analyze performance data, and it just goes on and on and on. But here's the brutal irony. The thing that made them want to be an author, the writing itself, is now the smallest piece of the job. A full-time skill set as a content creator, brand manager, and community builder has been silently layered on top of the craft, right? And I've, felt this. There has been, since I've been writing since 2009, it is more competitive than it's ever been. And if you look at even big time authors, Pierce Brown did the Red Rising series. You look at Brandon Sanderson, they are becoming increasingly more like influencers, right? They're posting out there, they're interacting, they're getting out, getting feedback from their audience, and it's almost like, well, you guys have made it. You don't need to do this. Well, to stay competitive, they have to do it. They feel the need to do it, right? Put aside whether they want to do it or not, right? That is just what the market demands at this point. Social media presence is now an expectation, not a bonus. Agents and publishers look for platform before the manuscript. You are so much more likely, and this is a travesty and I don't agree with it, but you're so much more likely to get published if you have 100,000 Instagram followers than if you have the best book in the world, right? Because they have to chase what sells, or they have to chase for their profit margins what they think is going to be a success, regardless of how good or bad the book actually is. So let's talk about 3 forces that prevent the normal self-correction that fixes other market, right? Well, there's infinite supply of books, 3 million books a year, and the average person reads between 80 and 84 books in their lifetime. There's no way 3 million books can have much of an impact for the vast majority of readers out there. Non-rational sellers, right? So books are tied to legacy, identity. They are going to push out those books regardless whether they sell or not, and keep pushing out those books because of the legacy they represent. And then there's also expanding demands, writer plus content and brand, right? So they ask on authors, keep growing. Writing was the job. Now writing is the entry fee. Marketing, platform building, and community management are now minimum requirements. Basically, having a platform out there has made it how you sell books. So normal market forces can't fix it. The question isn't whether the market is hard, it absolutely is. The question is, are you building a strategy for the market that actually exists or the one that you wish existed, right? And this is where I've made a lot of mistakes. Um, I wanted to just focus on making the best books possible, right? Kind of like the Tesla model where you just work on the car and not so much the advertisement for it. Hoping that the book gets out there, it gets consumed, and word of mouth it starts spreading. But that isn't the case. That is not the situation that we find ourselves in. Okay, so this is what we covered today. Normal market self-correct. Authors write for identity and legacy. 3 million books are published a year. Marketing platforms shift constantly. The modern author is a writer, marketer, content creator, and brand messenger. But don't despair. I'm going to talk about how you can overcome these challenges. And in the next 5 episodes that I'm going to release as part of this series. And for the comment section, if you guys can let me know if you think this is an accurate depiction of what the market looks like right now. Let me know what you guys think, especially for you young authors just getting out there. What does the market look like from your perspective? Okay, in the next episode, we're going to talk about how to find your audience in a very crowded market. So also, I'm doing the campaign Race to 1,000. I'm still giving out the first 2 audiobooks of Acadia for free. Acadia is a sci-fi adventure political novel set in the near future, about 250 years. If you want to listen to the audiobook, which was narrated by Ewan Morton, does a fantastic job, just see the link below and it'll take you to my website, which will explain a little bit better on what that campaign looks like. Anyway, thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next one.